الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We're going to be picking up with the legendary stories series of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. We are still in the story of Prophet Abraham or Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, whichever one may choose. They're both accurate. So, picking up from page number 79, just a reminder, yours truly, Muhammad Israel, and we have completed the story of Adam, Idris, Nuh alayhi salatu wassalam, Hud, Lut, and Salih. Now we're on to the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. And picking up from again page number 79. He explained to the people the beauty of Allah's creation. In other words, as far as that in which is in the universe, and this is from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's wisdom, His power. The idol worship is detested by Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. For Allah is the Lord of the universe who created mankind, guided him, provided him with food and drink, and cured him when he was sick, and who will cause him to die and to be raised up again. It was He to whom Abraham prayed and who would forgive his sins on the day of judgment. However, they would not give up but clung fast to idolatry. Abraham left his father's house and abandoned his people and what they worshiped. He decided to do something about their state of disbelief, but he did not reveal it to them. He knew that there was going to be a great celebration on the other bank of the river, which would be attended by all the people. Abraham waited until the city was empty, then he came out cautiously, directing his steps towards the temple. The streets leading to it were empty, and the temple itself was deserted, for the priests had also gone to the festival outside the city. Abraham went there carrying a sharp axe. He looked at the stone and wood statues of the gods and at the food laid in front of them as offerings. He approached one of these statues and asked, "The food is in front of you is getting cold. Why don't you eat?" The statue kept silent and rigid. Abraham asked the other statues around him, "Will you not eat of the offering before you?" He was obviously mocking the statues, for he knew they would not eat. He once again asked them, "What is the matter with you that you do not speak?" He then raised his axe, and this is Quran, Surah number 37, ayah number 92. He then raised his axe and started smashing the false gods worshipped by the people. He destroyed them all except one, on whose neck he hung the axe. After this, his anger subsided, and he felt at peace. He left the temple. He had fulfilled his vow to show his people a practical proof of their foolishness in worshipping something other than Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. When the people returned, they were shocked to see their gods smashed to pieces, lying scattered all over the temple. They began to guess who had done that to their idols, and Abraham's name came to their minds. Allah Almighty Jalla Jalaluhu said, "They said, 'Who has done this to our Ilah, our gods? He must indeed be one of the wrongdoers.' They said, 'We heard a young man, lad, talking against them, who is called Abraham.' They said, 'Then bring him before the eyes of the people, that they may testify.' They said, 'Are you the one who has done this to our gods, O Abraham?' Abraham said, 'Nay, this one, the biggest one of them, the idol, he did it. Ask them if they can speak.' So they turned to themselves and said, 'Verily, you are the polytheists and wrongdoers.' Then they turned to themselves their first thought and said, 'Indeed, you, Abraham, know well that these idols cannot speak.' Abraham said, 'Do you then worship besides Allah things that can neither profit you nor harm you? For fire upon you, madam, fire of woe to you, and upon that in which you worship besides Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Have you then no sense, fear? And this is Quran, Surah number 21, ayah number 59 through 67. Furious, they demanded that Abraham be arrested and tried. Abraham did not resist. This was precisely what he had been aiming for, so that he could show them up in public for their foolish beliefs. At the trial, they asked him if he was responsible for breaking the idol. Smiling, he told them, "Ask the biggest idol, which was still whole." He told them that he must be the culprit. They replied that he knew well that the idol could not speak or move, which gave Abraham the chance to prove the foolishness of worshipping these lifeless objects. They then realized the senselessness of their beliefs. However, their arrogance would not allow them to admit to their foolishness. All they could do was use their power of authority as tyrants usually do. To punish Abraham, they kept him in chains and planned their revenge. Anger was burning in their hearts. They decided to throw Abraham into the biggest fire they could build. All the citizens were ordered to gather wood as a service to their gods. Ignorant, sick women vowed that if they were cured, they would donate so much wood to burn Abraham. For several days they collected fuel. They dug a deep pit, filled it with firewood, and ignited it. They brought a catapult with which to cast Abraham into the fire. Abraham was put on the catapult. His hands and feet were tied. The fire was ready with its flames reaching the skies. The people stood away from the pit because of the great heat. Then the chief priest gave his order to cast Abraham into the fire. The angel Jibril alayhi salatu wassalam came near to Abraham's head and asked him, "O Abraham, do you wish for anything?" Abraham replied, "Nothing from you." The catapult was shot, and Abraham was cast into the fire, but his descent into the blaze was as a descent on steps in a cool garden. The flames were still there, but they did not burn him. For Allah Jalla Jalaluhu had issued his command, "O fire, be you coolness and safety for Abraham." Surah number 21, ayah number 69. The fire submitted to the will of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, becoming cool and safe for Abraham. It only burned his bonds, and he sat in the midst of the fire as if he were sitting in a garden. He glorified and praised Allah Jalla Jalaluhu with a heart that contained only his love for Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. There was not any vacant space therein for fear, awe, or worry. It was filled with love only. Fear and awe were dead, and the fire was turned into the coolness, making the air pleasant. Those who love Allah Jalla Jalaluhu as Abraham did do not fear no one other than Jalla Jalaluhu. Almighty Allah Jalla Jalaluhu declared those believers unto whom the people meaning the hypocrites said, "Verily the people, pagans, have gathered against you a great army, therefore fear them." But it only increased them in faith, and they said, "Allah Jalla Jalaluhu is sufficient for us, and He is the best disposer of our affairs." Quran, Surah number 3. Ayah number 173 to 175. So they turned with grace and bounty from Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. They returned with grace and glory, bounties from Jalla Jalaluhu. No harm touched them, and they followed the good pleasure of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. And Allah Jalla Jalaluhu is the owner of great bounty. It is only Satan, Shaitan, Iblis that suggests to you the fear of his awliya, his supporters, his assistants, his allies and friends, who polytheists, his disbelievers who disbelieve in the oneness of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. For so fear them not, but fear me. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu says that if you are true believers. This is Quran, Surah number 21, ayah number 70. The throng, the chiefs, and the priests sat watching the fire from a distance. It was burning their faces and nearly suffocating them. It kept burning for such a long time that the disbelievers thought it would never be extinguished. When it did burn out, they were greatly amazed to find Abraham coming out of the pulpit untouched by fire. Their faces were black from the smoke, but his was bright with the light and grace of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. The raging fire had become cool for Abraham and had only shared the ropes, or it had broken the ropes from which he was being held. Subhanallah. He walked out of the fire as if he were walking out of a garden. Cries of astonishment were heard from the heathens. They wanted to harm him, but we made them the worst losers. So Quran. This miracle shamed the tyrants, but it did not cool the flame of anger in their hearts. However, after this event, many of the people followed Abraham, although some kept their belief in the false deities, and some actually became believing in his message from secret for fear of harm or death at the hands of the rulers. Abraham had established a definite reasoning against the idolaters. Nothing was left for him except to reason against the people who proclaimed themselves gods. Inshallah, we will stop here on page number 84 and pick it up from there in terms of the second in command in prophet-wise in Islam. This is Prophet Abraham, Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam's mentor. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك وتبارك اسم ربك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.